Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is the story about Naruto. What if Naruto was the second Juubi 10 Tails Part 5? Hope you'll enjoy this video. So before we start, please do support for more awesome content and also hit the subscribe button and share this video with your friends and also support the creator of this fanfic. I have created many playlists, check it out in the channel. So let's start the video. All the winners of the preliminaries had gathered at the Chunin Exams Stadium. The crowd roared as thousands of shinobi and civilians from the Kumo, Konoha, and Suna plus many diplomats from all across the continent. In the highest stand in the arena, the Raikage, Hokage, and Orochimaru dressed as the Kazekage sat. Naruto was standing next to the others down in the field. He had to hold back the urge to kill the many people in the arena himself, since many were muttering about how unfair that Minato Namikaze was in the exams. "I'm not my fucking father," Naruto thought to himself in rage. "My name is Genma Shiranui." The original Proctor Hayate had an unfortunate accident during a mission. The bandana-wearing shinobi said as he placed a senbon in his mouth. Naruto hadn't been able to make it back to the village in time to save Hayate, and he was still pissed about it. It was so long ago when it had happened back in his world that it had slipped his mind. How could I make such an oversight? I should have fixed this before I left. I'm sorry, Nico-chan. Naruto thought to himself in a bit of self-hatred. Nico had always protected him when he was younger in his world, and he had failed her when he could have saved the one she loved. The first match will now begin. Everyone other than Samui from Kumo and Hinata Hyuga of Konoha, please go to the participants section of the stands, Gemma said. Everyone left their seats except Samui and Hinata. Naruto sat between Sayuri and Narumi. "So do you think Hinata-san will win?" Sayuri asked her lover, who shrugged. "I don't really know. From what I can gather, they both have very similar bodies built for speed, but Samui's body has more muscle than Hinata, but will be slower. In terms of chakra and ability, Samui has more chakra by a small margin than Hinata and has better sword skills. Hinata, on the other hand, has her Byakugan and her Jyoken. However, I say that Samui will win if exactly who her father is has had an effect on her training." Naruto finished as the match started. Hinata let out a battle cry as she charged at her opponent. Her Byakugan was already active as she went to strike Samui down with a hit to the heart, which the busty blonde easily dodged. "I will not lose, I will have my Narumi," she told herself as she continued to lash out at the Kumo Kunoichi. Samui was barely able to dodge all the attacks from the Hyuga. "She's fast," the cold Kunoichi thought to herself as she dodged another, what would be a fatal strike. "This is not cool," Samui mumbled as she jumped away from the Hyuga. Hinata glared at her and charged again. "I can't beat her in hand-to-hand combat, but I have my sword," she thought as she drew her blade. Charging it with lightning chakra, she swung it in the air and released a wave of electricity at the Hyuga heiress. The Hyuga smirked as she gracefully dodged the attack and charged at the blonde. "I will beat this Kumo bitch, then I'll beat the worthless wannabe yandere Naruto and reclaim my love," Hinata thought to herself as she started a deadly dance with the Kumo Kunoichi. The two dodged each other nearly perfectly. Samui tried to slash at Hinata's midsection, only for the lavender-eyed girl to jump over the attack and kick Samui in the face. The busty blonde went tumbling back from the kick but managed to fix herself before she hit the wall. "Lightning Shuriken Jutsu," Samui yelled as she threw several lightning-covered shuriken at Hinata, who smirked. "Kaiten," Hinata yelled as she started to spin rapidly. The shuriken bounced harmlessly off the dome of chakra. Hinata stopped spinning and smirked at Samui, who kept her emotionless expression. "Let's see how you handle this." 8 trigrams vacuum palm, the busty Hyuga said as pushed her palm forward and released a strong shock wave at Samui. As the shock wave neared the blonde performed a string of hand signs, Raiten Thunder Push, Samui said as she copied Hinata's action but let out a spinning cloud of lightning at Hinata. The two moves clashed and caused a huge explosion. Hinata was forced to avert her eyes because of her Byakugan, giving Samui enough time to get near her, but unlike before, her hands were covered in cloak of lightning. "Raiten no Yoroi Raikage chop," Samui spoke as she delivered a vertical chop. Hinata managed to react in time and got her arms up in a cross guard, but even then she could feel her bones cracking from the pressure of the attack. Seeing that her attack had been blocked, Samui jumped back away from the Hyuga before Hinata had a chance to strike her. Hinata knew that her arms were hurt now from the strong attack, but decided to continue to fight. "I have to end this," she whispered so that no one could hear her. I will not be able to hit her with 64 or even 32 palms at this rate, so time to test out my new move. Hinata thought to herself. Samui glared at the Hyuga, she blocked my attack. I guess that's kind of cool, but I have to finish this. The busty girl said as she threw a side glance at the Raikage, who was looking down at the battle from where he and the other cages were. Time to end this. Gentle step, twin lion fists. Hinata yelled as a shroud of chakra surrounded both her hands and took on the shape of lion heads. I couldn't agree more. Samui said coldly as she charged up the lightning cloak around her hands, Raiten no Yoroi lightning dragon's claw. Samui stated as more and more lightning covered her hands until they looked like large claws. Both busty ladies glared at each other before the charge. The audience held their breath as the two genin got closer and closer before they finally clashed. The arena shook as a large cloud of smoke rose from the center where the two had clashed. Once the dust had cleared, everyone saw both Samui and Hinata standing in front of each with their fists to each other's jaws. No one made a sound as the two stood there with white eyes. The seconds ticked away, but to everyone it felt like hours before the two collapsed on top of each other, giving a few perverts, including the Hokage, a small nosebleed when they saw both their massive chests pressing against each other. With the cages, Hiruzen quickly wiped his nose before Ace saw. Well, that was a good battle. I believe both have shown that they have the power to become Chunin, but I don't think that Hinata is quite ready yet. She was too straightforward and swayed by her anger. Hiruzen spoke to the other cages and nodded. While I admit that is true, she has a certain fiery to her which I can respect. Said as he kept his thoughts about his adoptive daughter to himself. I agree with you, Hokage Dono. That was a great battle, but I'm sure that the next one between my daughter and a living Namikaze will be even better, with the one between the Uzumaki and Uchiha being the second best of the finals. Orochimaru was disguised, as the Kazekage said. After both Hinata and Samui had been cleared out of the arena, Genma walked to the middle. Would Naruto, Namikaze, and Sabaku no Gaia please come down to the fighting area? Naruto smirked as he jumped over the railing and landed with a soft thud. Gaia allowed some of her sand to come out of her gourd and used it to form a platform that floated down to the other side across from Naruto. Give me father's blood. This is your chance to make your mother very happy. Shukaku said in an insane voice in Gaia's head. Gaia had to resist the urge to hold her head as the Biju within her screamed its orders at her. Instead of fighting them, she just accepted them and looked at Naruto with extreme bloodlust filling her eyes. You, Naruto Namikaze, will be the one who will prove my existence. Gaia said as more and more sand came out of her gourd and piled around her, getting ready to attack to shield her during battle. Naruto grinned and drew his sword. It seems I'll be able to fully test out that jutsu. Naruto thought to himself as he got into a stance. The proctor started the fight, and like that, Gaia's sand was already on the move. Naruto jumped out of the way of the sand, only to have it follow him. Jinto shadowless flight, Naruto whispered as he blurred out of existence. Gaia's sand rose behind her just in time to block a punch from Naruto, but most of the sand was blasted away from the force behind the attack. Naruto grinned as he slashed his sword, only to have more sand come up to block it. Well, almost block it, since the sand was parted by the blade and left a light scratch on Gaia's sand armor. Gaia's eyes widened when she saw that her ultimate defense wasn't able to block the sword. Hell, it let the sword go right through it. In the stands, Kankuro's and Tamari's eyes widened when they saw the sword go through the sand like it wasn't even there. Naruto didn't have a chance to continue his assault as the sand turned to attack him. Naruto flipped away from the sand as it crashed into the sand and continued to chance after Naruto, but the blonde Biju was far too fast for it. This is kind of fun, Naruto thought as he charged at the red head again. The sand swirled around Gaia and turned into a massive sphere-like shield. A sphere of swirling black and white chakra appeared in Naruto's right hand, Rasengan. Naruto yelled as he smashed his jutsu into the shell. Sand splattered everywhere as the swirling ball of doom drilled through the sand and hit Gaia in the stomach. Gaia shot across the arena into the wall. Her gourd of sand exploded into a massive cushion to protect her from smashing into the arena wall. Her entire sand armor was cracked from the sheer force of the jutsu. Gaia pushed herself off the wall and glared at Naruto with hatred. Her eyes for a second transformed into that of Shukaku. Give up, Gaia, you can't win. Maybe we can go out for lunch after the exams are over, Naruto asked her in a smooth voice. Gaia blushed at the offer, but her thoughts of maybe accepting it were pushed away by Shukaku. Gaia didn't even respond, as her sand rushed at Naruto again, who held out his sword. Her eyes widened when she saw the sand stop dead in its tracks. What the hell, Gaia uttered when she saw her sand stop by itself. Sabakuka's is a special sword I got from a friend a while ago. It is the sword of the desert winds, and it gives me enough control over sand to stop your attacks. Naruto said before he charged at the Jinchuriki. Gaia was forced to move now that she knew that his sword could bypass her defense and stop her attacks to an extent. Sand drizzle? Gaia said as she sent a large cloud of sand into the air before it started to pour down in small lumps. Naruto smirked as he swung his sword over his head to deflect anything that would have hurt him. He didn't feel like using the Rinnegan yet, so he would stick with his advantage with the Sabakukas until he felt it was the right time to use his secret technique. That's not enough, Gaia-chan. Desert heat, Naruto yelled as he swung his blade, releasing a wave of superheated wind at the busty red head. Gaia's defense rose to block the attack so hot that it turned some of Gaia's hand into perfect glass. This is getting fun, but let's see you block this, Naruto said as he started to stir the air above him. A red sphere appeared over him as red winds spun around it. Gaia brought up her ultimate defense as Naruto leaped high into the air. Shukaku could feel the Biju chakra within the attack and added even more sand and his own chakra into Gaara's barrier. Dragon Twister, Naruto yelled as he swung his sword and threw the attack at Gaia. It was one of his newer attacks which he developed during the month. It was basically like the Rasen Shuriken, only that it was real wind around the sphere of Biju chakra instead of only wind nature chakra. The attack hit Gaia's shield straight on and expanded into a massive dome of red wind with a purplish glow in the middle. The range of the attack was as large as the arena, and the strong winds even reached the cages in their booth. Everyone in the stands had to cover their eyes as wind and sand was thrown all over the arena. What power? He yelled out to Sarutobi. He had been there when Naruto practiced it in one of Kumo's training grounds. He had instead let Naruto and Genma stay in Kumo for a few days to rest before going back and had given them permission to use his training ground. He never expected it to be turned into a wasteland in a single move from the blonde. He knew that if the blonde had hit him with it at full power, he would not have been able to fight even with his armor. Thank God he didn't use it at full power, a thought to himself. This is a new one, really. I've never seen him use it before. Sarutobi yelled back over the howling winds. He practiced it back in Kumo. This isn't even at full power. I say this is only half strength so as to not kill the girl. I responded to the old man. He'll make me proud. The thought about how powerful the boy was and how it would benefit his village since they were now family through Naruto marrying his adoptive daughters. As the wind cleared, it revealed a panting Gaia. Half her body was the color of sand, cracked to the point where it was breaking apart. The right side of her face, right arm, and left leg weren't like that, but were covered in small cuts. You pathetic girl. Father's not even using his true power, yet he's kicking your ass. Kill him. Kill him. Kill him. Shukaku roared within Gaia's head, forcing her to hold her head. Sand swirled around her and rapidly fixed her armor. Naruto became serious when he saw the insanity filling her glaze. This is my blood. My blood, I'll kill you. She screeched as Shukaku was now completely made to lose her mind as she sent massive amounts of sand at Naruto, who saw that he had no escape from this attack without endangering the audience since the sand was surrounding him and was going to crush him from all directions. Naruto smirked as he let the sand wrap around him as his sword started to glow. Sand coffin? Gaia said as she panted. She was never able to finish her jutsu as the sand coffin exploded in a light that blinded everyone who was looking at it. As the light faded, they saw a new figure standing in the arena that wasn't Naruto since he was next to the man. This man was a fair skin redeed with black rings around his green eyes. On the left side of his forehead was the kanji for love. He wore full-length dark trousers with a pair of laces on each leg, respectively a few inches below the waist and the knees, a long-sleeved crimson coat with flaring hemlines and slits down on the lower half of the front and the back, a gray holster vest held in place by a single strap over his left shoulder and by two buckled belts which he uses to carry his gourd. He also wore another pair of casually worn belts around his waist. His arms were crossed as he stared into Gaia's eyes. It's been a while, hasn't it, Gaara? Everyone looked on in shock when Naruto talked to the man next to him. To many of the Suna ninja there for the invasion, it looked like Naruto had summoned a male clone of Gaia. Many of the civilians from the other nations yelled that the blonde was cheating by summoning another fighter on his side. That's cheating. Asuna Shinobi yelled at Naruto as many started to boo him. Kankuro and Temari were looking on with white eyes as they saw the male version of Gaara. Narumi and Sayori knew who this was from Naruto's stories but still couldn't believe the power the man held. It wasn't on par with Naruto, but it was higher than that of the Hokage. He also had the same kind of aura that Naruto had, one that commanded respect. Hiruzen and Danzo were looking down at the arena with curiosity. Naruto had said that he had gotten another cage-leveled ally, but they didn't expect the male version of the Ichibi Jinchuriki. It was truly amazing what Naruto could do. Many of the people from Suna were a bit scared by the man who looked like their feared Jinchuriki but had an even more powerful feel and look than her. The shinobi could tell from a single look that the man was a war veteran who had seen many loved ones die. It only made him that more intimidating. "Naruto, it's been a while since we've seen each other face to face," Gaara said while he continued to stare at the red head in front of the two. The two shinobi ignored the cries from the audience and continued their talk. "SP, this is her, huh? She's stronger than I was during the Chunin exams," Gaara said. The blonde beside him smirked. "Well, everyone here is 2 years older than in our world, so she has had more time to train than you," Naruto said as he looked up at where the cages were sitting and gave them a small nod. Orochimaru had no idea what that meant, but the two other cages knew exactly what it meant. It was almost time. "Do you mind taking care of her and giving her the same treatment I gave you?" Naruto asked his friend. Gaara looked over at Naruto from the corner of his eyes. "Very well. I'll show her what I have learned from the war and afterlife," Gaara said as he stepped forward towards Gaia, who flinched in a bit of fear. Even Shukaku was a bit intimidated by the Godame Kazukiage. The audience was silent as Gaara calmly walked towards Gaia. Orochimaru was about to call the start of the invasion before both A and Hiruzen jumped out of their seats and kicked the snake out of the stadium and onto one of the larger rooftops of the village. If two cages attacking another didn't shock everyone there who wasn't a Konoha Jonin, the massive waves of Konoha Anbu that stormed the stadium with Kumo Shinobi which started to engage the Sand Ninja in combat did. Naruto grinned as he jumped towards where the cages and Orochimaru were. All the Konoha Genin and the civilians looked lost at the random fighting that had been started. "Kazumi Nichin, what's going on?" Narumi asked her sister. "Suna and Oto are invading. Go help the civilians get to somewhere safe," Kazumi yelled as she knocked out a Suna Chunin and killed an Oto Jonin. Narumi could see that her Sharingan was active already as the silver-haired Kunoichi fought back her enemies. "I'm not leaving you," Narumi yelled as she stabbed an Oto Genin. The other Konoha Genin nodded in agreement before they engaged Kankuro and Temari in battle. She was able to see her brother going towards where the cages were about to fight. "Where is Neru-kun going?" "To help the Hokage, Danzo, and Raikage against Orochimaru," Might Guy responded as he kicked a Suna Jonin away with a leaf whirlwind. "Damn it, he better come back in one piece," Sayori yelled over the fighting before then heard a loud buzzing sound. Everyone looked at the village gate to see a massive 7-winged beetle fighting off 2 massive summons that looked like 3-head snakes while Gamabuna fought another one. "Is that a Biju?" Many of the Suna and Oto ninja cried out at the gates as the Nanabi attacked the summons. There were supposed to be 10 of them, but most of them were destroyed by mysterious Anbu ninjas from Konoha. "I thought they only had the Kyuubi," one of the Oto Jonin yelled before he was killed by a purple-haired Anbu. With Gaara and Gaia. Gaara continued to stare at Gaia for a few more seconds while the invasion roared around them. Gaia was the one who broke the staring contest with a roar and launched a large claw of sand at Gaara, who raised one hand and stopped the claw before it was able to strike him. "Die!" Gaia yelled in an almost demented voice. CZ. Several tendrils of sand shot at Gaara, who stood calmly as they approached him at high speeds. With a wave of his hand they all turned around and shot back at Gaia. The female Gaara was able to dodge the sand attack but was caught in a sphere of sand made by Gaara. "I have to get her out of the village," the male redhead thought as he made the sphere containing the raging Jinchuriki fly away from the village until it was far enough from the village while he followed shortly behind it on a cloud of sand. Just as they get far enough away from the village, the ball of sand explodes to reveal Gaia in a semi-transformed form. Her right arm and half her face had transformed into that of Shukaku while a large tail came out of her tailbone. Her gourd seemed to merge into her as her right eye became that of Shukaku. This is where the battle begins. Gaara said, as with a flick of his hand sand erupted from his own gourd and flew at Gaia, who swung her arm at him, letting loose a large wave of sand. The two waves of sand collided, but Gaara's control over it was high enough that he managed to force it all into a spear, sending it at Gaia. Gaia growled as she extended her arm at the spear, causing it to merge into it. Soon a shuriken. Gaia yelled, sending several condensed shurikens of sand at the older red head. Gaara made a simple motion with his hands and constructed a wall of sand in front of him. The sand shuriken were easily absorbed into the larger sand body. With another movement, Gaara morphed the wall into a large hand. The hand grabbed Gaia and smashed her against a tree, which almost toppled over from the force. Give up, I know every single one of your moves, while you only know a fragment of what I can do. Gaara said coldly as he stared at the girl. Gaia was trying desperately to escape the sand hand, but had made little progress in it. Stupid girl. Let mother handle this, then after we kill this bastard we can kill father. Shukaku yelled as he pushed more and more of his chakra into Gaia. The red-haired girl screamed as the sand around her started to fuse into her body. Gaia's body now largely resembled Shukaku's, with the expedition of the legs which were not covered in sand yet. With another beastly roar, Gaia shot another massive wave of sand at Gaara, who was forced to dodge when he felt he couldn't control her sand anymore. I can't use her own sand against her anymore because of Shukaku, and if I use my own sand then it will only add to her own reserves. I guess it's time to test this out. Gaara thought while dodging several tendrils of sand that the girl was launching at him. Stop moving. Gaia's demented voice echoed through the forest as Gaara weaved through every single attack. Why would I do that? Let me show you what I can do. Gaara said as he saw a massive wave of sand coming at him from Gaia. Platinum sand waterfall flow, Gaara whispered as a seal appeared on each of his hands before a considerable amount of grayish-white sand came out of the seal and collided with the wave of sand that Gaia made. The two attacks cancelled each other out, but as Gaara's white sand went back to him, Gaia fell lifelessly to the forest floor. This is something I learned from my father in the afterlife. This is my platinum sand, it is denser than sand and even gold. Gaara said as the whitish powder swirled around him. Gaia roared when she was reminded of her father's gold dust. The rage she was feeling allowed the Shukaku within her to take over. Massive amounts of sand erupted from the ground and wrapped around Gaia, transforming her into the Shukaku. Finally. I'm free. Time to party. The Bidyu roared out in joy of being in control now and able to rampage. Not so fast, Shukaku, I will stop you, Gaara said as he sent another wave of sand at the Bidyu. Shukaku brought up an arm to block the attack, only to have the platinum sand wrap around his arm and merge into it. Bidyu instantly felt his arm become heavier than before. Damn it. You just like fighting the bitch's annoyance of a father. Die. Shukaku roared as he shot a volley of air bullets at the former Kazukiage. Gaara managed to maneuver through all the attacks before launching his own attack of several spears made of platinum that sank into Shukaku's stomach. You can't win, Shukaku, Gaara said as he held out his hands, causing another surge of platinum to come out of the seals on his hands. Shukaku, knowing from experience, dodged the wave of white dust. Gaara didn't nothing but flick his hand, causing the dust to turn and smash into the Tanuki's side. Shukaku slid a bit as the platinum sand pushed its way into his body. That's it, the Bidyu roared as its arm separated into 10. Shukaku launched all 10 giant arms at Gaara, who held out his hands and gathered all the platinum dust that wasn't already fused into Shukaku into a massive wall that blocked out the many arms. Is that all you can do, Shukaku? I must say that I'm disappointed by you. To think you once made my life hell, now you put an ant at my feet. Gaara said as he let out all the dust from the seals in his hands and started to draw even more from the earth. Since the beginning of this battle I've been drawing platinum and turning it to dust, now this battle is over. Giant platinum sand coffin. Gaara yelled as the whitish dust started to gather and wrap around the Bidyu. Shukaku thrashed as he tried to escape the dense dust that was entering his body. Damn you, human. You're ruining my fun, the giant Tanuki cried out as he was forced to a knee as his body began to get heavier. Gaara didn't respond as he continued to force his dust into the Bidyu's body. Shukaku's sandy coloring was quickly being replaced by a whitish-gray color. Eventually Shukaku collapsed from how dense he now was thanks to Gaara. The redhead watched as the Bidyu continued to try to lift himself off the ground, but the Tanuki barely managed to lift himself more than a few inches. It's over, Shukaku. You can barely move now. The former Kazekage said calmly while lowering himself down so that he was face to face with the Biju. The Biju's body was completely platinum now. Now it's time for us to talk. Gaara said as he looked right into Shukaku's insane eyes. Ha! Like I would ever talk to you. You're just like that bastard, the Yondaime Kazekage, you just want to ruin my fun. Well, I wouldn't stand for it. If I can't have my fun, then I'll make the bitch do it for me. The insane Tanuki laughed out madly at Gaara, who glared at the Biju. You're really annoying, Gaara said as he held out his hand and clenched his fist. Shukaku screamed in pain as the platinum dust in him started to twist and turn, causing him extreme internal pains. Gaara watched as the beast yelled and cursed from the pain that he was causing. Fuck you, bastard, Shukaku yelled at the war veteran, who continued to torture the raccoon dog. You will stop your attempts to take over Gaia and will allow her to sleep in peace. Furthermore, you will no longer tempt her to kill people or claim to be her mother. If you continue to do so, I'll have Naruto talk to you himself. Gaara threatened the Tanuki, who was about to argue until he mentioned Naruto. Shukaku's eyes widened when he heard that Gaara would tell Naruto. No. Please don't tell father. Anyone but father. Shukaku pleaded. Gaara couldn't help but raise a non-existent eyebrow when he saw the Ichibi's reaction when he mentioned Naruto. It was quite humorous to watch the Biju beg. Like I said, stop your actions against Gaia and return to your cage. Gaara ordered the Ichibi, who grumbled about how unfair life was before he retreated into Gaia. The red-haired girl fell from the air into a soft cushion of white sand made by Gaara. The former Kazekage resealed away the platinum sand, leaving Gaia lying on the forest ground. Gaara floated down to the clearing where Gaia was. The second Gaia saw Gaara approaching her, she started to crawl away from him. Stay away from me, she yelled as she clawed at the ground but didn't have the energy to carry her body. I will not allow my existence to be erased, she cried out as she desperately tried to get away from the older redhead. I will not hurt you, Gaia-chan, Gaara said calmly as he stopped when he was standing right over her. Gaia's eyes were filled with fear that she was going to die at the hands of the man who looked like a clone of her. We need to talk, Gaara said in a slightly kinder voice as he squatted down next to him. What do you want? Gaia asked as she continued to try to get away from Gaara. Calm down, I just want to talk to you. Why do you kill people? Gaara asked the female Jinchuriki, who looked at him. Gaara knew why she killed people, after all, he in a way was her. I need to prove my existence. If I don't kill, then I have no reason to live, Gaia responded. She was starting to feel better around this man for some reason. It felt like she knew who he was even if they had never met. I see, you kill to give yourself a meaning, Gaara said to her with an understanding tone. I used to be the same as you, Gaara said as he squatted in front of her. As a matter of fact, I am you, just like Naruto is also Narumi-san. I used to kill to prove myself, but then I met Naruto, Gaara said as he remembered his battle with Naruto. Gaia blushed when the male red had mentioned the blonde. Gaara saw this and smirked. Gaia looked at Gaara in confusion. What happened when he defeated you? The female Jinchuriki asked the former Jinchuriki. He taught me how to truly live. He taught me that I can prove my existence by protecting those that are important to me. That true power comes when you fight and live for someone else. I used to live for myself after Yashimaru-san tried to kill me, and you too. Gaia growled, don't mention that bastard. He and my mother betrayed me, the girl yelled at Gaara, who looked at her with a gentle gaze. It wasn't his fault. It was our father who sent him to do it when we proved we couldn't control Shukaku properly. Yashimaru was father's way of testing us to see if we could control the Biju. Father forced Yashimaru to lie to us to enrage us. Our Kasan always loved us. It is her will that runs our ultimate defense, not the Shukaku. As Gaara said this, sand swirled around them and collected into the form of Karura. She never hated us. She loved us with all her heart. She never wanted us to become Jinchuriki, Gaara said as sand swirled around his hands. Kasan lives on in our sand. She is the will that drives the sand to protect you and me. Now rest. Gaara whispered the last part as he pinched the back of her neck, causing her to fall into a slumber. Naruto landed next to Danzo, and Hiruzen. Both were facing Orochimaru, who had gotten rid of his Kazekage disguise. This is the end of the line, Orochimaru. I already beat you before in the Forest of Death. What makes you think you even have a slimmer chance now? Naruto said. The snake Sannin sneered at the blonde Biju. You got lucky last time, brat, but this time I've brought some help. Orochimaru said, as he slammed his palms on the ground, causing 4 coffins to rise out of the ground. 2 of the coffins said first, while the other 2 said second. While this was going on, 4 sound shinobi created a purple barrier blocking the Anbu from coming to the aid of the cage. The lids of the coffins fell open to reveal 2 men and 2 women. Naruto easily recognized the 4 people in front of him. The first male was a tall man with tanned skin and waist-length hair. He wore a dark red-colored armor that resembled that of a samurai over a simple black suit. He also wore saddles and a Konoha forehead protector. This man was the legendary master of the Mokuton Hashirama Senju. The woman next to him was Mito Uzumaki, the first Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi no Kitsune. Mito had long, bright red hair and large pupilless eyes. She wore an elaborate, high-collared kimono with the Uzushiogakure symbol on the back of the obi, which was tied around her waist. Her hair was arranged in buns with hairpins in them and 3 clips in the front. She also wore a dark shade of red lipstick and had a violet-colored diamond mark on her forehead. She also wore tags with kanji written on them in her hair decils. Next to her was another man. He was the second Hokage and the best water style user that ever lived, Tobirama Senju. Tobirama was a tall, fair-skinned man with white, shaggy hair, red eyes, and 3 red markings on his face, 1 under each of his eyes and 1 on his chin. He wore armor emblazoned with the Senju symbol worn over a simple black suit with a distinctive white fur collar. This armor was constructed from numerous blue metal plates formed into multiple protective guards along his body, in particular, chest, waist, shoulders, and upper arms. This clothing was accompanied by sandals and a hapuri engraved with the Konoha emblem in the place of the more traditional forehead protector. Beneath his shoulder armor he wore 2 bands on each arm. The last woman was someone who Naruto wished he didn't have to fight. It was Narumi's, and by default his own mother, Kushina Uzumaki. She had a slender but feminine build, fair skin, violet eyes, and fiery red hair. She wore a blue forehead protector with her hair tied up in a high ponytail. Her attire consisted of a standard Konoha flak jacket over a black short-sleeved shirt and black form-fitting pants that reached her calves. "Where am I?" Kushina asked as she looked at the group opposite her. "Minato-kun." She yelled out in cheer when she saw Naruto, who had to bite back the urge to yell at her, saying that he was not his father. He, however, didn't need to correct her, as Orochimaru did it for her. "I'm afraid you are mistaken, Kushina-san. He is not your husband, but a relative of his. Meet Naruto Namikaze," Orochimaru said, as he motioned to Naruto, who watched the events with a hidden anger. "It seems that my own jutsu is being used against our village, Nai-san," Tobirama said, as he gave his Ito Tensei body once over. "To think that something I created would be used against my own student," Nidaime said, as he looked at Sarutobi and then Danzo. They had been with him on the last mission, where he had sacrificed himself for their survival. Hashirama nodded. "Yes, it has a Tauto," the wood-style user said to his brother before turning to his student. "It's been a while, Saru-chan, you got old," the Shodai said with a smirk when he saw the old cage twitch. "Now dear, it is not the time to joke around," Mito said before she turned to a shell-shocked Kushina, who was staring at the boy in front of her. "Kushina-chan, he is not Minato, he is Naruto," the first Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi told her fellow Uzumaki. "I know, but they just look so alike. Seeing him makes me wonder about my daughter," Kushina said, as a few tears came out of her darkened eyes. "I must say to Orochimaru, you might actually give me a workout," Naruto said, as he closed his eyes and crossed his arms. This seemed extremely familiar to Hashirama and Tobirama. "But do you think it's enough to defeat me?" Naruto said coldly, as he opened his eyes to reveal Madara's eternal Manjikyu Sharingan. "Impossible," Hashirama whispered, as he looked at the same Sharingan he fought several decades ago. "Nothing is impossible, Hashirama Dono. Hokage-sama, I'll take Hashirama Dono and Kushina-san out of here to give the 3 of you more space to fight. You know the plan," Naruto said, as Orochimaru placed the seals on the 4 dead ninjas' heads. He could have stopped it at any time, but he really wanted to fight the Shodai, since he was one of the few Naruto knew would be able to challenge him. Without warning, Naruto blurred out of existence and appeared next to Hashirama, with a clone appearing next to Kushina as the 4 flashed away from the roof, leaving the other 3 to fight. "I'll take Orochimaru, Raikage Dono take on Tobirama-sensei. You might be the only one who can match his speed here." Danzo took on Mito-sensei, Hiruzen said before the 3 charged at the 2 undead shinobi. That activated his lightning armor and smashed Tobirama in the face with a lightning-enhanced punch, while Danzo drew a sword and slashed at Mito, who summoned her own sword and blocked the attack. Hiruzen continued on and attacked Orochimaru head-on. The Snake Sannin charged at the old Hokage and attempted to drive his Kusanagi through him, only for his sensei to turn to mud the second the sword hit. The snake managed to twist his body out of the way as the Sandaime slammed down on where he was with Enma in his staff form in his hands. "You will not beat Orochimaru," Sarutobi yelled before charging at his student once again. With Naruto and his clone had flashed Hashirama and Kushina to the one of the few places he knew where he could let loose without having to fear that he would hurt people. Naruto smirked as he jumped back away from the two dead shinobi. "This is going to be fun," Naruto said as he went through several hand signs, Kaiten Fire Annihilation Jutsu, Naruto yelled as he called on Madara's memories. Hashirama and Kushina jumped out of the way of the massive wave of fire. Doing a one-handed hand sign, Hashirama's other hand transformed into several large tendrils that shot at Naruto. The blonde focused his chakra into his eyes, Amaterasu. Naruto whispered as black fires sprung out of where Hashirama was standing. Seeing it coming, Hashirama jumped away before he could get hit by the flames. The Shot-Eye was forced to backpedal away as the flames continued to chase after him. Kushina, being forced to attack by the seal, summoned a katana and charged at the blonde Yondaime look-alike. Seeing the red head coming at him broke his concentration over the Amaterasu, causing it to stop in its tracks. Naruto was forced to dodge a flurry of swings from his mother, but thanks to Madara's Sharingan he was able to easily follow all her attacks. "Stand still and let me cut you," the Uzumaki woman said to the blonde who weaved around every attack. "But then I would get hurt," Naruto said with a smirk before he vanished in a blur and appeared behind her with a spiraling sphere of chakra. "Rasengan," Naruto said as he slammed the ball of chakra into her back. Naruto would have done more, but he was forced to dodge a water dragon from Hashirama. Naruto glared at the wood-style user. "This is getting fun," Naruto said while his Sharingan spun wildly. As he was, Hashirama opened up a large scroll and summoned a large amount of ninja tools. Branches of wood ripped through the ground and grabbed the weapons in midair. Not even giving the blonde Biju a second to think, one of the branches flicked a few shuriken at him, followed by the other branches throwing their own weapons at him. Madara's Sharingan followed each weapon, allowing the blonde to dodge all the attacks with a bit of help from his Jinten. Before Naruto could attack, his instincts told him to jump. Doing so, Naruto managed to dodge all the weapons which had been thrown at him from the branches of wood that Hashirama had spawned behind him to catch the weapons. The blonde went to perform another jutsu but was interrupted by a chain wrapping around his right leg and throwing him into the valley wall. Kushina's eyes widened when she felt his chakra. "Hashirama-sama. He's a Biju," she yelled at the Kage, who nodded and performed a set of hand signs. Large branches of wood ripped out of the ground and shot towards where the blonde was, only to be cut by a dark blue blade that came out of the dust cloud. Naruto walked out of the dust covered in a blue aura with an ethereal skeleton arm holding a sword. "It seems like I might just have to get serious in this fight," Naruto said coldly as the blue shroud grew exponentially along with the skeleton before muscle and skin appeared over it. "Susanoo," Naruto said as he made another chakra sword in the ethereal warrior's other hand. With the Kage's Danzo, dodged another water dragon from the Nidaime, who had completely lost control of his body along with Mito. "Damn, this guy is annoying," a thought as he charged at the undead shinobi who jumped away from him. The Raikage yelled as he increased the amount of lightning around him. In what almost looked like a flash from the speed he was moving at, appeared over Tobirama. "Lightning oppression horizontal chop," yelled as he delivered a simple yet powerful lightning-covered chop which was able to cut Tobirama straight in half. As the former Kage was recovering, he pressed the seal that Naruto had given him on the side of the man's arm. "All I need to do now is hold him off until Naruto activates the seal," a thought to himself as the buff Kage jumped away from the recovering Tobirama. "This jutsu is a pain in my ass," said as he was forced to dodge a barrage of small water spheres from the Nidaime Hokage. The Raikage charged at the Senju and engaged him in combat once again. A little bit away, Danzo was dodging Senbon from Mito. While she wasn't anywhere near the level of Tobirama or Hashirama, she was still a powerful kunoichi on her own. Danzo didn't seem phased as he dodged the seemingly endless rain of needles. "Futen stream," Danzo said silently as he breathed out a strong stream of wind that blew Mito a bit back. The undead Kunoichi managed to stick herself to the ground and performed a set of hand signs, Fuinjutsu flowering explosion, Mito said, as seals appeared on the ground around Danzo. Each seal almost resembled a flower. The elder's eyes widened before he was engulfed in a massive explosion. Mito was about to go help Orochimaru fight the Sandaime, but was stopped when a blade of wind cut her left arm off from behind. She looked over her shoulder to see Danzo standing perfectly fine behind her. What caught her attention was his arm. Not only did it look unnatural, but it had 10 Sharingans implanted into it and the image of Hashirama's face on it. That was close. It won't happen again, Danzo said, as he threw 2 wind-enhanced shurikens at the Uzumaki only for them to disappear in puffs of smoke. She sealed them, Danzo thought before going for a fire jutsu. Kaiten Great Fireball Jutsu. Fire sealing method. The redhead said, as seals appeared in the air and started to absorb the fire jutsu. Once the entire fireball was sealed, Mito spoke again, release. That one word caused the seal to release the fireball right back at Danzo, who substituted himself with a tile. Futon vacuum serial waves, Danzo called out as he started to release several blades of wind in different angles by moving his head in different directions. Mito countered with another seal sealing the wind blades. However, this gave the Shimura enough time to throw several kunai with explosive tags attached to them into Mito's stomach. Mito didn't bat an eye as she ripped the tags off and deactivated them thanks to her talent with seals. The Uzumaki crushed the tags before she took out her own seals, only that these had 5 seals on them. That Shodai's wife charged at the old man with the tags in her hands. Danzo was about to move out of the way, but was stuck when he saw seals on his feet sealing him to the floor. Mutually multiplying explosive tags, Mito said, as she activated the tags, which released 5 tags each before exploding, and the 5 released 5 more each. This started a cycle of explosions, as each new tag made 5 more. Before the explosion could end, Danzo appeared outside of the blast with 2 eyes closed on his arm. This is taking too long. I'm too old for this shit, Danzo said, as he watched the series if tags explode in front of him. In his hand was the seal Naruto had given him. Further away, Hiruzen was dodging swing after swing from Orochimaru, who had regurgitated his Kusanagi. You will never beat Orochimaru, the old Hokage yelled as he jumped away from the snake Sannin. Orochimaru laughed at his former teacher. Please, you're an old man now. Maybe if you were a few years younger you may have a chance, but at the moment you're weak, the snake Sannin yelled as several snakes flew from his sleeves at Hiruzen, who raised a stone wall to block the snakes. You will not leave this place alive, Hiruzen yelled as he pushed the earth wall at the snake, who jumped over it. Kaiten Inferno Stream, Hiruzen yelled as he let out a massive stream of flames from his mouth. Orochimaru jumped over the flames and summoned a large white snake in midair to attack the monkey summoner. The Sandaime managed to evade the snake and countered by turning the ground under Orochimaru into mud and swung with his large staff, only for the Sannin to turn to mud. Shit, Hiruzen thought before snakes came out of the floor and attempted to wrap around him. The old man managed to substitute himself with a nearby tile before charging at Orochimaru, who had appeared in front of him with the Kusanagi coming out of his mouth. Hiruzen turned his body in time to dodge the sword and kicked Orochimaru away from him. Orochimaru chuckled as he got back up from the floor. That was a good hit. I didn't think that you would be able to dodge that attack in your old age. The snake-like man taunted his former teacher, who glared at his once prized student. I may be old, but this old man can still kick your ass across this country, Hiruzen said as he threw several shuriken at Orochimaru. With a one-handed sign, the dozen shuriken turned into hundreds. Doten Earth-style wall, Orochimaru called as he spat out mud from his mouth, which rose into a large wall that blocked all the shurikens. The snake summoner was about to cast another jutsu when he was hit by Enma, who had returned to his normal form. Before Orochimaru could regain his footing, the Sandaime Hokage appeared over him and smashed him into the roof. The village, the Odo, and Suna ninja were getting pushed back faster than they ever thought would happen. They never imagined Kumo helping the Leaf, as well as having their Jinchuriki fail to cause any damage and having to fight 3 Bijuas at the same time. Most of their forces had been cleared away by the Nanabi, and the appearance of the Hachibi and the Nibi crushed their hopes of winning the war. Retreat? One of the Suna commanders yelled, ordering his men to stop attacking and leave the village. With the call, all the remaining Suna shinobi who had not been killed or captured left the village. The shinobi from Odo looked around, confused by what to do now. They were cornered and left by their allies. Keep fighting, If Orochimaru-sama finds out that we ran, we will face something worse than death. A sound Jonin yelled out to his men, causing them all to attack once again. With Naruto, Hashirama, and Kushina were having a hard time evading the attacks from a large ethereal giant around Naruto that was attacking them with 4 different swords. Normally Hashirama wouldn't have a problem doing this, but his power was heavily restrained by Orochimaru so that he would stay in control of Hashirama. Kushina had never had a battle like this. She knew that one wrong step meant she would get cut in half. She had already lost 1 or more of her arms more than once. Thank Kami I'm not really alive, or I would be dead right now. She thought to herself. This is getting old fast. Naruto said, as he cut through some of the roots that Hashirama made to wrap around Madara's Susanoo. He had expected to have an epic fight like he hadn't had since Madara, but Hashirama has nowhere near full power because of Orochimaru, and his mother wasn't at the level needed to give him the fight he wanted. Is this boring? Kushina yelled as a chain came out of the ground under Naruto and threw him out of the Susanoo. Wood ripped out of the stone ground and wrapped around Naruto before forming a prison that covered every spot, completely concealing Naruto from the 2 undead shinobi. There was an eerie silence in the valley before red and black energy shot out through the thin gaps in the wooden prison. The sound of wood cracking could be heard as a large bulge appeared on the side of the prison before another one appeared on the other side, followed by another. Shit. Hashirama said, making more wood rise from the ground to further wrap around the prison as much as he could under the limitations of power he was under. Seeing that the strange power was no longer leaking, Hashirama let out a sigh of relief. The moment of relief was ruined when the now large prison exploded in a shower of splinters and wisps of red and black energy. Out of the shattered ruins that once was Hashirama's wood prison came out Naruto in a form he had never used before. Naruto's body seemed to be covered in black and red energy. He had a black flame like Haori with red seals on it, with a red energy shirt with a black seal, where his old seal used to be, which resembled a circle with a smaller one inside of it with a black line coming out of it up his body to his neck. His pants were also covered in flame-like energy. His skin had become covered in black energy with 2 horn-like bangs. His eyes were no longer Madara's Sharingan, but 4 rings over a pure red background that covered his entire eyes with 3 tomos within each of the inner 3 rings. You should be honored to see this form. You are the first to ever see me enter this form. I guess it's time I properly introduced myself. I am Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, the Nidaime Juubi no Kishin, and Rakudaime Hokage of Konoha. Naruto said, as the 9 tomo in his eyes spun wildly as he flexed his power. This was his 10 tails human form. It felt almost exactly like Kurama's, only with a lot more power. Both shinobi were shocked speechless at the proclamation, but decided not to let their thoughts linger around it. Before the 2 undead ninjas could react, a black chakra arm shot out of Naruto's back and smashed into the ground between them, launching both away from the other. Naruto calmly walked towards Hashirama when golden chains ripped out of the ground and wrapped around him. Got ya. Since you are a Biju, my chains would work perfectly to hold you down. Kushina said with a wide smirk. While she hated being forced to battle for that snake Orochimaru, she had to admit that this battle was fun. If you really think that this will be enough to hold me down, then you're dreaming. Naruto said with a mocking grin as he started to push apart the chains. Naruto yelled before he snapped the chains around him, letting them fade into nothing. Kushina stood there shocked that her chains had failed her. She had used them to suppress the Kyuubi with ease, yet this man was able to rip through them with relative ease. What kind of monster is this man? She thought to herself as she stared at him in awe of the awesome display of raw power. As ashamed as she had to admit that it was turning her on a bit at the moment. See? Your chains can't stop me. I am on a completely different plane of power than the Kyuubi. My might is that of all 9 Bijuas fused into one. Now stay back while I have some fun with the Shodai. Naruto said as he made the King of Hell appear behind her and devour her entire body before leaving the mortal realm. Naruto quickly jumped back as several roots came out of the ground where he once stood. The Shodai stood on a rising tree that was taking to the top of head the stone rendition of himself. Naruto smirked as he jumped up to the top of the stone Madara's head. How ironic it was, first he had used Madara's eyes to fight Madara's own rival, and now here he was on Madara's head while he fought Hashirama, who was standing on his own head. Nearby Itachi Izumi, as Naruto knew her, watched the battle from the trees near the valley and watched in awe of the power Naruto was using. The power Naruto held was even greater than what he had used in their battle. Amazing, this battle is like nothing I've ever seen. She thought to herself as she watched the two stare at each other from atop of the two large statues. Are you ready for Hashirama-san? Naruto asked the undead shinobi who smirked back at him. So it's only Hashirama-san now? Well, let's see if your power is all it's cracked up to be, Hashirama said as he felt the restraints Orochimaru set on him lift as Naruto's aura interfered with the control seal. Red markings spread over his face and around his eyes with a target-like mark on his forehead like a third eye. Sage mode, Naruto thought to himself. Let us see. Juubi Rasengan, Naruto yelled as he formed a massive Rasengan twice the size of his body before launching his right arm out with it. Senpu Mokuten Great Wood Dragon Jutsu, Hashirama making a massive wooden dragon come out of the statue's back and with a great roar, go soaring straight at Naruto. The two great jutsus clashed in between the two statues, letting out a gigantic shock wave that shook the entire country as the two jutsu battled for supremacy before cancelling each other out in a massive explosion that shattered the ground at the bottom of the valley and almost blew away all the trees around the valley. What power? Izumi thought as she used chakra to stick to the tree, hoping it wouldn't get uprooted. As the smoke cleared, both fighters looked each other in the eyes. Without warning, both leaped out at each other. Within a split second, both Naruto and Hashirama nailed each other in the face, sending the other flying back towards the statue they were standing on just before. Naruto corrected himself in mid-air and formed several small bijudamas in the shape of cones before firing them all at the sage. Seeing this, Hashirama made a single hand sign. More wooded tendrils came out of his statue and intersected the barrage. Explosions rocked the valley as Naruto's attack lit the air in light. Hashirama landed on his head. Suiton Water Dragon Jutsu. The Shodai said as he spat out a large stream of water that morphed in a large dragon. As the water dragon came at Naruto, the Biju disappeared in a flash of black, letting the jutsu crash into the Madara. Hashirama sensed Naruto above him and jumped off the stone representation of himself in time to avoid the aftermath of Naruto's Rasen Shuriken. As Hashirama landed on the valley floor, he saw Naruto diving right for him. Before Naruto got within range to hit him, a large pillar of wood came out of the valley wall and smashed Naruto into the other side of the ravine. The Shodai didn't get a break since, as soon as the pillar hit the wall it exploded as Naruto pulsed his power. The sage quickly reacted when he saw a black chakra arm coming at him holding a large Rasengan. The first one was easy to dodge, but what kept the Sennin on his guard was the fact that 9 other arms with even larger spiraling balls of energy followed the first one. Thanks to his sage mode, he was able to sense the movements of the attacks and dodged all of them, only to be caught off guard when an additional attack came out of the ground. The undead sage managed to create a dome of wood around himself in time to block the attack that tried to grind its way into the down, only to stop a bit short. Naruto glared at the dome and inhaled as much as he could before releasing a volley of large fireballs similar to the Phoenix Flower Jutsu, only much bigger. The attack managed to blast through the wooden shell, but before Naruto could react, wooden tendrils came out of the ground and wrapped around him. Naruto wasn't able to get out of the trap before Hashirama smashed a chakra-enhanced punch into Naruto's jaw. The wooden restraints kept Naruto from going flying, which was really a bad thing for Naruto, as Hashirama dished out a combo of ungodly powerful melee attacks on Naruto's body before the blonde got out of the bind and was able to get away from the powerful legend. Now this is a battle. Both thought as they stared at the other in the eyes with a mutual respect that only two shinobi on such a level could express. In both their eyes, the only thing that could make this battle better would be if Madara was also revived, but that was not meant to be. Naruto smirked as he cleaned a trail of blood that was coming out of the corner of his mouth. This is a true battle. Two spirits clashing with their will and might. Now, show me everything you have, Hashirama, Naruto exclaimed as he formed another Bijuidama and fired at the dead cage. The founder of Konoha used his Kekkei Genkai to lift himself out of the range of the attack. The explosion shook the valley and everything near the valley. They were now attracting a crowd at the valley. Now not only was Izumi watching, but so was Zetsu, most of the Akatsuki in projection form, and several shinobis from different villages who were in the area. Specifically 2 busty kunoichi wearing headbands with a flower symbol. Both shinobis circled each other, staring each other down as they prepared their next attacks. Within a split second, the two were engaged in a taijutsu fight like no other. Naruto delivered a right hook only for Hashirama to quickly recover and kick Naruto in the ribs. Naruto went flying away, but used 2 chakra claws to hold on to the ground and bring himself to his feet. The Bidyu charged at the dead cage and vanished once he came within a few feet of him. Hashirama tensed as he tried to feel out Naruto only for a massive chakra fist to blast its way out of the ground and launch him into the air. A second hand came out with a cone-shaped Bijuadama before firing it at him. Senpu Mokuton Heaven's forest barrier. Out of his arms several trees came out and created a sphere-like barrier around him. The trees mended together into a solid wooden ball. The powerful attack smashed right into the shield, causing another great explosion and cracking the entire shield in every way. Hashirama jumped through the gaping hole created by Naruto's attack. The two engaged into another close-range battle, each ended in a stalemate once again. "Show me what you have," Naruto yelled as the sage punched him away from him. "As you wish," Hashirama yelled as hundreds of large roots ripped out of the ground under them and attempted to catch and crush Naruto. The Bidyu started to weave his way around each of the roots and they attempted to subdue him. It was endless. For every one he dodged, 10 more came out to try to crush him. Finally, after what seemed forever, a root managed to wrap around Naruto's ankle and drag him into a large cluster of roots that coiled around him. Naruto felt his strength slowly being drained from his body by the wood. Naruto, however, continued to struggle to try and escape. "I will not lose," yelled as he used the ability to form several arms to rip and tear away all the roots that were trying to suppress him. Hashirama glared at Naruto as he focused even more chakra into his jutsu, increasing the quantity and quality of the roots that attacked Naruto. "You can't win. My Mokuton is able to suppress any Bidyu," Hashirama yelled out at the godlike shinobi. "Tenpenchi." With that one word, the onlookers could only describe the scene that happened afterwards as pure chaos. The Valley of the End was now the epicenter of the ultimate natural disaster. From Naruto's location, tornadoes rapidly started to form as bolts of lightning struck all over the valley. From where Naruto was held, massive waves of water ripped through and flooded the valley. The earth shook and was uplifted from the power. Hashirama was hard-pressed to stay above the water level and simultaneously avoid both the tornadoes, and he couldn't make a platform out of wood because of the random shifts in the earth. "This is unreal. Not even Madara could cause this much devastation in such a short amount of time," the sage thought as he jumped out of the way of a tornado. Eventually, the entire disaster retreated into a single spot before it detonated as a massive explosion like the world hadn't seen since the age of the original Rikudo. The explosion took the shape of a giant mushroom cloud with bolts of lightning coming out of the large top of the cloud. Unlike before, Hashirama wasn't able to dodge this attack and was engulfed in the aftermath of the explosion. With the Akatsuki. So this is the power of a true god. I have a long way to go before I will be able to match him in combat. A man with shoulder length and purple eyes with 4 rings around the pupil. He couldn't help but clench his fists as he watched the battle unfold right in front of him. "I claim to be God, but I know that if I ever fought one of these two, I would die," the man thought before looking to his side at the only woman in the group. "But if need be, I will fight him for our dream," he said in a hushed voice so no one heard him. Back at the battle. The cloud of doom faded slowly. The entire valley was now completely destroyed. The 2 statues that once stood were no rubble on the ground. The water of the waterfall that once stood between the statues had completely evaporated. In the middle of a massive crater stood a panting Naruto. "Shit, I don't have enough control over this form," Naruto thought to himself as he looked around at the valley. In front of him was the ruined remains of a wooden dome. "I did it," Naruto said with a small smile. He knew that he had gained several internal injuries, but for now all he had to do was wait for Danzo to place his seal on Mito, activate the seals, then kill Orochimaru. Silence reigned as Naruto walked away from the dome. His chakra cloak faded away to reveal a heavily bruised and bleeding Naruto. The silence was interrupted by a low rumbling. "No way," Naruto, though, jumped back to avoid a large wooden spike that erupted from the ground. Naruto turned in time to dodge a punch from Hashirama, who had lost his sage mode and was missing an arm. Normally it would have healed, but because of Naruto's control over yin and yang, the healing effects of the Edo Tensei were negated. Hashirama stood at full height. He only had 1 arm left, and his armor had been completely destroyed along with the top of his clothing, leaving him in only his pants. "It's been a while since I was pushed this far," Hashirama said as he looked Naruto in the eyes. Hashirama knew he would have died if it wasn't for the effects of his brother's jutsu. Same. I must admit that I thought I had finished you off with that last one. That damn jutsu is so troublesome, I guess it's about time we end this. Naruto said as his eyes changed back into Madara's Sharingan. Let's Hashirama grinned as he channeled his chakra into his right arm, causing it to bulge with muscle as he regained his sage mode. A dark green aura surrounded. Naruto grinned when he felt the chakra being channeled into the arm. Holding out his hand, a sphere of black flames rapidly grew until it was about a foot in diameter. The two godlike shinobi started to run at each other, slowly picking up speed. Senpu Divine Fist of Nirvana. Amaterasu Adama Rasengan. As the two attacks collided, the entire country shook, as the ground under them cracked and splintered, as the two attacks battled for dominance. The force was so great that it forced the Akatsuki's images to vanish. The two shinobi gritted their teeth as they struggled for supremacy. Hashirama-san, you are by far the strongest person I have faced since my battle with Madara. Naruto said through his teeth. Same, I don't know how you fought Madara, but having his eyes proves that you did. The Shodai responded. The ground under them shattered as the valley became more of a crater from the pressure of the attacks. Everyone watching was forced to leave the area as the valley started to grow even bigger than it once was. I will not lose, I can't lose this battle, Naruto thought to himself as he stared into Hashirama's eyes. No more games, Naruto yelled at the dead cage before his body erupted in black and red energy. Naruto's Rasengan grew larger as Naruto pumped more chakra into it. Both could feel the chakra of the world swirling around them as it formed a black sphere encompassing both of them. This sensation remained in Naruto from the last clash with Sasuke he had at the Valley of the Dead when they were kids. The two near godlike shinobi rapidly saw images from the other's life. Naruto saw Hashirama's childhood during the Warring Clans period, his rise in power, his battle with Madara before the village was established, the founding of Konoha, Madara's betrayal, and lastly the showdown between Madara and him. Hashirama went through a slideshow of Naruto's past. He saw how he was raised, his time on Team 7, Sasuke's betrayal which remained him of Madara, he saw him leaving with Jiraiya to train, his return to Konoha, his rescue of the Kazekage, Naruto's battle with the powerful Pain, Naruto meeting A then later B, Hashirama saw Naruto fighting Kurama, and then lastly he saw images from the war, and Naruto facing Madara, and the Juubi with his friend Gaara standing by his side in the end. The sage smiled as he felt his body start to break down into pieces. Naruto-kun, you've been through so much. You and that Sasuke kid reminded me of myself and Madara a bit. You're someone I would love to have as Hokage. Naruto smiled as his cloak faded away. I was Hokage, but in the end Konoha was still destroyed. Naruto said to the Mokuton user. He still blamed himself for Konoha's destruction. He felt as if he could have saved them from the Juubi if he had only been stronger. Maybe you should forgive yourself. You couldn't have prevented that, but now you're here in a new world, you have found love. As Shodai Hokage, I hereby give you the title of Guardian of Konoha. And with that one last statement Hashirama completely dispersed into dust and returned to the pure world. On the outside of the sphere the world stood still as the ball of chakra exploded in light that shot up into the air in a tower of natural chakra. At the bottom of the valley Naruto laid on his back panting heavily. Most of his clothing was gone from the explosion of power and was covered in his own blood. He had done it. He had beaten Hashirama Senju in a one-on-one fight for the most part. Looking around from his position he saw the wreckage that used to be the Valley of the End. You could still see the faces of Madara and Hashirama within the rubble, but the statues themselves were now a pile of rocks. I can't lay here, I have to get back to Konoha. Naruto said as he slowly stood up only to fall. Before he hit the ground, however, he was caught by a familiar face. Naruto looked up at the face of Itachi, or, as he knew him or rather her, as Izumi. Rest, you've been through a lot. Izumi said in a stoic yet kind voice as she held Naruto. She still couldn't wrap her head around the battle that she had just witnessed right before her eyes. It would forever be ingrained into her mind as one of the most awe-inspiring, yet frightening displays of pure power she had ever seen. Not yet, I still have to activate the seals on the other two reanimated shinobi back in Konoha, Naruto said, making a hand sign. Phew, and with that Naruto lost consciousness. Cage battle. Danzo and A panted as they watched the two undead shinobi crumble into dust as the seals activated. Danzo had managed to plant his seal onto Mito after she had activated her suicidal jutsu. He had managed to sneak it on her back as she was fixing her body. Normally she would have been able to break the seal, but this seal had both the chakra from Naruto and the Shinigami who wanted the souls back in the underworld. The two were dead tired from the battle, with A having several cuts from Tobirama cutting him with his kunai and bruises from the blunt water jutsu. Danzo had lost 6 of his Sharingans from the battle with the Uzumaki. Everything he had sent at her was sealed then released right back at him, or she would use some suicidal jutsu to try to kill him. Their attention was refocused when they heard both Orochimaru and Hiruzen scream in pain. Orochimaru had been able to stab Sandaime through the chest with his kusanagi. Hiruzen had managed to sever Orochimaru's arms, but the snake had used his control over the kusanagi to pull it towards the two and skewered both himself and the old man. "This is your end, sensei," Orochimaru said with a wide smirk at his supposed victory. "In case you haven't noticed, you lost both your arms and stabbed yourself," Hiruzen said as he coughed up some blood. This battle had also taken a toll on his body. He, however, was glad he didn't have to fight Orochimaru and the reanimated ninjas by himself. "Even if I die, I'll just come back. Unlike you, I have found ways to remain alive even after my own death," Orochimaru said with a wicked smirk at the mention of his plan to return to the world of the living even after death. "The curse mark," the Sandaime said with disgust filling his voice. Before the two could continue, Danzo and A attacked Orochimaru and ripped the sword out of Hiruzen. "Don't worry, Hiruzen, I'll fix you up," Danzo said as he used Izanagi once again, but of the Hokage rather than himself, to remove the stab wound going through the man's chest. "Well, this isn't going as planned. I think I'll take my leave," Orochimaru said as the barrier fell around them. The Anbu around the barrier were intercepted by Odo Shinobi. The Sound 4 jumped down and carried the Sannin away from the cage-level shinobi. The three would have attacked if they didn't have to deal with the cannon fodder that was an entire squad of Odo Chunin and Jonin. By the time they had finished, everyone off Orochimaru was long gone and they were too tired to search. All parties involved in the battle were tired. There were captured soldiers that had to be put in cells to be interrogated, buildings that were damaged to plain out destroyed, and several dead shinobi and kunoichi that needed to be cremated then buried. 3 days later, Naruto stood at the side of Hiruzen's bed in the hospital. The blonde was covered in bandages but was able to move around thanks to his healing ability that came with being the Juubi and a near god. Danzo had left to return to his base to reorganize route after the battle. That had been in his own room being guarded by Kumo shinobi. "So how are you doing, Sandaime Dono?" Naruto asked with a smirk. Hiruzen couldn't help but chuckle at the blonde's attitude. "I'm fine, Naruto-san," he responded. Normally he would have called him Rakudame Dono, but he had Anba watching him from attackers. The old man's smile slowly sagged into a frown, "But from this battle I've realized that in my old age I'm no longer fit to lead this village." "That's not true. You managed to hold your own against Orochimaru and forced him to a standstill. You can still protect this village." Naruto tried to encourage the old man. He had to be at his funeral once and almost did again. It only reinforced Naruto's theory that he had grown overconfident and was putting his family and friends in jeopardy. He had already allowed Sayuri to gain the curse mark and failed to seal it when it was still fresh. Now he had almost lost his grandfather figure for the second time. "I wish that was true, but even if I could match Orochimaru I would never be able to go up against the likes of people like Nagato or Madara. You even faced Hashirama and beat him," Sandaime said with a sad smile. He had always dreamed of fighting his sensei and beating him, but was never strong enough, yet this blonde in front of him was. Naruto couldn't say anything since it would have been a lie. If it had been Nagato or Madara who Hiruzen had been fighting, he would have died during the fight. "Which is why I have made my choice," the third Hokage said. He smiled warmly at Naruto. "Naruto-san, I know it isn't the same as your old title, but you're the only one currently in the village who has both the power and experience to do what I'm asking you to do," the elder man said to the blonde, whose eyes widened at what the old man was implying. "Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, I officially declare you Godame Hokage of Konoha." Thanks for watching my video. Leave a like if you enjoyed my video and also do consider subscribing to my channel for more awesome content. If you want the next part of this story, let me know in the comment box. See you next time. Till then, sayonara.